Wow, we're almost done here. And I just wanted to take a look at a few things. We've painted most of our self-portrait here in our diffuse layers and in a bump map. But as mentioned earlier, we do have different channels, and I think we'll take this lesson, this tutorial, to look at the different channels and what they do. So I'm going to create a new layer, but instead of diffuse, let's just go ahead and make a specular channel. Hit OK. When I hit OK, I get a paint layer for my specular, and if I go into my paintbrush, I can start painting. Now this is red. Let's go ahead and see what happens if this is just pure white. Specular mapping works on luminance values, and that just means it works from white to black, or values from white to black. There's no color. So when I start painting white, it's painting a specular or highlight wherever I paint. Pretty cool. So if I change that to black, I'll just paint over where I had painted specular before. It basically acts like an eraser and erases any specular. If I go to a 50% gray or any kind of gray value, it just knocks down the amount of that shine or specular value. So it's kind of an interesting tool. We don't really have that kind of a shiny head, but it might be nice to have a bit of shine here and there. But shiny specular faces are not natural and are going to look funny, so I'm just going to go ahead and I can do a couple things. I can just delete the specular, or if I wanted to, I could flood the layer with black, which would eliminate any kind of shine back to our original value. But I'm just going to delete that specular layer back to our original lighting. Let's go ahead and create gloss. Gloss is different than specular, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I'm in white again, white will give me 100% gloss, 100% black will give me 0 gloss. So if I start painting, it's not like a highlight per se, it just makes our surface glossy, and the best way I can explain that, if you look, it kind of makes it look like we're sweating or that it's wet. So now when I move around, especially in the forehead up here, you can see where that gloss has been painted. And I'm just going to delete that because we don't want a sweaty face. Incandescence. Incandescence is that kind of subsurface luminance or glow that you see in skin. It's just like a subsurface scattering, so we can control the level of that by painting our incandescence. So if I just go ahead, I'll just do 100% white and just kind of paint that, you can see that it gets this really hot incandescence or kind of inner glow basically. Let's just take it down a bit and go to a dark gray, and now we can see how we get a bit more of that subsurface lighting. Let's go dark gray. And I could paint that, or our skin really, we would like to have this, that's kind of subsurface lighting, so I'm just going to say flood the paint layer. But I'm going to go back into 100% black, whoops, and paint it out where we wouldn't have that lighting, and that would be in our eyebrows. So I'm just going to paint that out. I'm not being that accurate, I'm just doing this quickly. And I'm going to take the opacity down to 50%. So now we get a subsurface incandescent scattering to get a better kind of luminous skin. Let's have a look at opacity. Opacity is cool. Basically, you're just painting whether or not your surface is transparent or not. So if I pick black here, and opacity works on luminance. Let's take that up. So you can see if I'm painting that, see where it's making the front of that surface transparent now. I can see through into the eyeballs. Pretty wild. There might be instances where you need that if you're doing, surfaces that are semi-transparent, like fins on a fish or something like that. But we don't need to use that here, so I'm just going to delete that layer. A vector displacement map. Basically, I'm not going to go into it. You're probably better off to go into tutorials, but a vector displacement map is based on images you can find online or download that are basically based on Bezier curves, and you can it's quite impressive. You can model. There's a Mudbox tutorial where you model an ear simply with an image, a flat image that is vector based. Very powerful tool. Bump map we've had a look at. Normal map. Normal maps, if you're familiar, most of us should be, are maps that will displace the surface in Maya based on a color value. Color values will displace or do a physical displacement. Unlike bump is a fake displacement. It actually doesn't move the surface out or in. It renders the appearance that it is 3D, but it's not actually a true mesh displacement. It doesn't actually move vertices or faces around. A normal map will do that, and the nice thing about the normal map the normal map will allow you to displace really quite detailed areas on low polygon meshes. So it's used quite a bit in gaming to save on processing time. The nice thing about this, though, I'm just going to delete that normal map, is that I can come back, click on my bump map. This is what's powerful about that bump. If I right click, I can say normal map from bump. And its compatibility with Maya and Soft Image. But just using this default space, it'll create a normal map for me. So it's kind of a real nice thing to do. I would probably, you can see here, it's just done the one layer, and that would allow me, it's an actual normal map, it would allow me now to turn this layer off on the bump. But if I was happy with what my bump map was doing, let's just delete that for a moment. Collapse it to one layer, right click on that bump map tab, and you can right click on that collapsed channel, make a new group, and then once you make a new group, you can merge that group into one layer, and then you can export that one layer as a bump. Instead of trying to do each layer separately here as a normal map, you can collapse this down to one normal map. And last but not least is our reflection mask. And a reflection mask you're not going to see much here, but what you can do, because in Mudbox if you're not really reflecting anything in our scene, that if I was to paint white here, nothing's happening. And if I was to paint black, nothing's happening. What I'm actually doing is painting areas on the face where if I took it into Maya, that it would recognize as a reflection mask. That is, it would only reflect those areas that I would have painted white. You're not going to see it here because our Mudbox doesn't have kind of environment set up here to actually reflect, or my material that I'm using is not a reflective material, so we wouldn't see what's actually happening here. So basically you're just painting areas on your mesh that you want to be reflective. That's about it for Mudbox. Let me just delete that reflection mask. So I have my diffuse incandescence and bump map, and we've got a decent looking self-portrait complete. The only thing left to do is to create a movie to show it off. Thank you.